hear you yet, but...
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Now I can at least hear myself. Okay, I have some strong feedback loop here. I think I'm gonna switch off your audio. So during presentation mode, I will not be able to see the conference room, so please just let me know if there's any issues. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, and I'm talking to you from Germany right now. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to present our project in a virtual manner here today. I'd like to present some current status of our digital twin project. So, excuse me, there's something. So, I think now this works. Okay. So let me just briefly introduce our agency a little. So I have just this slide. So I come from the Federal Agency for Cartography and Geodesy, and as has already been said, this is kind of the equivalent of the IGN in France. And our agency is the central service provider for topographic data, cartography, geodetic reference systems, and more stuff for the German government. And I've just put some of our main tasks here on the left. The first is some different portals that we are providing for all the geodetic data of Germany. There's those GeoPortal, and we have the digital atlases. We have a geodata center where we provide digital geodata and web services like web mapping services and feature services. And we have some colleagues working in geodesy, which are helping us positioning of the Earth. Then there's the satellite-based crisis information service. That's the colleagues who are working when there's acute threats. And then there's the digital twins unit, which came into existence about a year ago. That's what I'm talking about today. Yeah, on the right you can see our different sites. Basically, today I'm joining you from Leipzig, which is in East Germany. Then we have our main site that's Frankfurt, Main, and in that cell that we are providing those observatories, as you can see on the bottom right. This is a very long baseline interferometer, which helps us for geodetic measurements. Yeah, regarding the digital twin. As you might know, and I think this is not unique for Germany, we are facing multiple complex challenges today. And I've put some of the most striking examples over here. So the first is accessibility and equal living conditions. For example, we got heat islands and so on in cities, but also different living conditions to centralization of large cities. Then we have this global change resulting in forests and wildfires and more extreme events like flood risks here on the bottom right. And we're facing more and more challenging security and defense challenges. And this is why our project came into existence about 2 years ago, which is
and the production is planned from 2027 on. Yeah, and so to face these challenges I just mentioned, the main aim of our digital twin project is the provision of a simulation and analysis platform for the federal administration by the end of 2026, in order to create relevant added value for a variety of social issues. So this is really rather quite broad aim, I'd say, but this covers it quite well. And our understanding of the digital twin is covering basically three essential components. The first one is the development of a cloud computing platform where the data is going to be stored, and we're going to provide some essential interfaces so that our users can use their own data as well for the use cases. Then the development of databases, which will be existing data, but also a nationwide LiDAR campaign, which is currently being done. And the third thing is in implementation of use cases. So our digital twin is highly driven by demands of our federal authorities, and we try to develop our use cases as close as possible together with our contractors. Yeah, so let me just start with the first column of our project. This is the development of a cloud computing platform. So as our project is also including a LiDAR campaign of Germany, so we're gonna expect a lot of data, and this is why we decided to create a processing and development platform to perform well on processes and run where the data is stored. So this is called a data lake architecture. So our federal administration users are going to work there where the data is stored, and we call this the DGZ-DE platform. And this will be a scalable cloud computing platform where there can also be linked external sources for various use cases. Then there will be stored our aerial LiDAR survey data from this first campaign of Germany, and additional data from our agency. On this platform, there will be different user roles for different kind of users, and we will provide different virtual workstations like RStudio containers, Docker containers, Visual Studio Code, Jupyter notebooks, Python, all the stuff that you need to develop your own applications. And then we're going to provide lots of different interfaces also to publish your data to the end users. Our current setup, as we are still under development, are local workstations and desktop machines. So until now, we are quite limited. But we also have some access to Code.de, which is a German-wide Copernicus data exploitation platform. It's actually also a scalable cloud computing platform as we are planning, but for basically Copernicus data. But that's when we're going to develop our use cases for now. Yeah, and our target setup by the end of 2025 will be a Cloudera platform that is using the Hadoop file system for large files. And this is going to be hosted by the ETZ Bund, which is a federal information technology center of Germany. And this will only be accessible for federal agencies. So this is going to be quite secure. That's the advantage. The disadvantage is that it's going to be quite difficult to publish data for a broader community. That's why we're also working together with Destination Earth and the European-wide project to use this as a platform for the cooperation with external partners, and also to use it for open data applications. But this is where still negotiations are currently happening. Yeah, the second column, the databases, that's what's currently under heavy development, and this is going to consist of basically three different parts. The first is the existing data that I already mentioned. This is data of the federal government, that may be any data set covering Germany, but also data of the GDIDE. This is the geodata infrastructure of Germany. So this existing data, we won't provide this on the platform, but there will be interfaces. So we want to avoid duplicate data storage, but this inventory data is offered via interfaces. Yeah. And we will not distribute our BKG data during on the platform, but our platform's main aim is really to develop those use cases and to be able to work with the data. The second column of the databases will be the 3D point cloud that is currently being flown. So we have a national aerial survey going on right now. This will be the main workhorse, I'd say, of the project. And the third column are those data-derived objects from the point cloud. I think the most classical ones might be the digital terrain model derived from the point cloud or the digital surface model. But what we are working on in our use cases is the delineation of specific objects like single trees or flight obstacles. And this will be additional derived products that we're gonna use in our project. Regarding the nationwide airborne LiDAR scanning, as I just said, that's just happening right now. That started last year. And basically, we divided Germany into 8 lots. So the overall area of Germany covers about 360,000 square kilometers. So I think it's not as big as France, but still quite large for such a campaign. And we divided into 8, as we call it, aerial lots. And those lots were not divided by the federal states, which you can see here by these grayish borders, but we divided them especially with accordance to the difficulty of the survey, and particularly with regard to the relief of the terrain and the proportion of urban surface. And these lots are based on 1 degree grid. That's how these blocks come into existence. And as you can see, we have 5 different contractors, so we don't do the aerial survey by ourselves, but with the contractors. So there were some tenders, and they are flying with these 8 lots. Our contractors are going to use different sensors. So some are going to use the SPL, a single photon LiDAR, but most of our contractors are going to use linear mode LiDAR scanners. So unfortunately, we didn't achieve a homogeneous sensor throughout the nation, but nevertheless, we are still excited how these results will differ from different sensors. And our expected data volume will be of approximately 1.5 petabyte for this first survey. So this also shows why it might be necessary to use this data lake architecture, as this will be a quite huge amount of data. Here I've put some more details regarding the aerial campaign. So the 3D point cloud is gained by airborne LiDAR scanning, as I just mentioned. So this is basically an active LiDAR, light detection and range sensor mounted on an airplane. And this is flying at an altitude of 700 to 2,000 meters altitude, roughly. So that depends a little on the sensor and its sensitivity. And on board the aircraft, there is mounted a GPS and an inertial measurement unit. So the position and the orientation of the airplane is continuously measured. And then using this active laser signal, we are able to derive highly precise point cloud of the topography. And for now, we're working with the data of the pilot phase. So there was started the pilot aerial service of the Hamburg metropolitan region in October 21 to February 22. So we have some data that we can already work on and implement our use cases. And the second thing, that's what's happening right now, is the nationwide aerial survey that started in 2024 and will finish by the end of this year. Yeah, and the acquisition timeframe is from March to October. So we really wanted to ensure that flights are happening during the vegetative phase. So we also want to cover trees and so on. All that's vegetation. Some of our federal states, they tend to fly during the winter season, as they are highly interested in an accurate digital terrain model. But in our project, we are also interested in above ground infrastructure and vegetation. That's why we decided to conduct our nationwide aerial service during the vegetation period. Our point density will be quite high. It will be more than 40 points per square meter, or at least 40 points per square meter. That's also why the expected amount of data is quite high. And our height accuracy will be of about 10 centimeters, the position accuracy of 20 centimeters. And we have decided on 12 different semantic classes, which these point clouds will be segmented in. And with these classes, we're going to stick to some ASPRS standards, but we also modified them a little. Yeah, but in the end, we decided on 12 different classes. Simultaneously, there will be an RGB acquisition of the campaign. So all these points of the point clouds will be colored with RGB information, so that you also get a quite real-world impression of the point cloud. And yeah, there are further aerial surveys planned, but as the funding is not granted yet, as this is a highly political decision, that's not fixed yet. But yeah, we try to repeat this 3 annually or something. Yeah. Yeah, and the result is a Germany-wide high-resolution classified 3D point cloud. Until now, there are already 30% of the nation flown. So the data is expected to come soon. They are still at our contractors, as they still have to do the post-processing and the classification. This is done by our contractors, but we're going to receive the data soon, and we are looking forward to that. Yeah, next I'd like to show you some impression of the point cloud, and I hope that the animation that I've put here will be visible to you as well. So I'm gonna let this run. Yeah. So as I just mentioned, our point cloud comes semantically segmented, which is every labor-intensive task that can be done highly already methods, but still some objects highly separate from others, but nonetheless, this is contracted. The main attribute of point cloud is that this is the main core of the cloud. So then each point is going to have a development slider. Our pulse is being limited to set and has an antenna. Then we have a return number, one pulse divide into these several returns. For example, in areas, we will have this return at the P and have several different returns on the ground or beneath of the canopy. Then we'll have class, as I mentioned, and the attached RGB values. So the RGB imagery will be intersected with the cloud, basically, and then we have an RGB value of the points. Yeah, and class is basically 12. So what you see here in the beginning is the RGB color representation of the point cloud, and this is shifted to a class colorization where a ground vegetation, water, building, ground infrastructure, bridge, high bridge power lines, like differs. And as you imagine, this is very helpful for use case. You can already fill the point code, and you can, yeah, this makes it very feasible. Here is some data pilot phase, which have much of how this one area that was about 9,000 square kilometers huge. And with that, I'd like to come to the third column of our project. This is going to be the pilot use case, which we're currently working on. As I just said, our project is highly demand-driven by our federal authorities, and that's why I'm working closely together with them to establish their demands and to check out what's possible and what's not possible. And for this, we have developed kind of a workflow of how this is working. So at first, there is an idea or demand of a public authority. For example, if we have the Deutsche Flugsicherung, this is a federal authorities who's interested in developing an electronic catalog of flight obstacles. And then there's the first contact. So they contact us, the federal authority, the BKG of cartography. And then there's a two-sided consulting and demand-oriented workshop where we're going to talk about what might be technical feasible or not. That's where our developers like me are strongly involved. And then there is a proof of concept. And as you might see here, there's a double arrow. So this is an iterative process where we test what might be possible and what is not possible, and we rediscuss it with our with the federal administrations. And as soon as we have a proof of concept that works out quite nice, there is a cooperation declaration where our demands and our service is described in more detail. And based on this cooperation agreement, we develop then the demand together and extend the use case until we have a large data set or even a nationwide application. That's the basic concept how we approach our use cases with our users. Then I have another quite general scheme of how we're going to derive data from this point cloud. So what you see here on the left is an RGB colored airborne from the airborne LiDAR scanning point cloud derived from the Hamburg metropolitan region. And as you can see here, this is RGB colored, so we don't have any instance segmentation yet. But using this semantic segmentation and further AI methods, and this doesn't have to be necessarily AI method, but lots of them are, but may also be simply simpler rules to further delineate objects. But the second step is the derivation of objects and features that might be, for example, trees or buildings or cranes. So really a more abstract layer of the point cloud. And we derive those objects and further features like, for example, tree height or crown area. For buildings that might be the building height, but also the shape. So what we try to achieve is to further abstract the information from the point cloud, first to gather value, really object-specific value, but also to further abstract the point cloud to make the data better manageable and better usable in our different use cases. As the point cloud is quite heavy in storage, but also quite hard to work with. Yeah. And on the very right, you see the use by federal authorities. As I said, we are developing multiple use cases. And what we want to achieve is reusability and subsequent use of our data by identifying common demands and features. So if we derive, for example, a tree crown inventory data set, authority A might use it to estimate urban tree vitality or canopy coverage, but another authority, B or C, might use it for sound propagation to better simulate sound propagation, also using this tree layer. And another authority might maybe use flight obstacles, and they're gonna need, for example, building layer and a layer of high infrastructure or something. So yeah, what we really try to ensure is this reusability of different data sets by abstracting the point cloud into different objects and features. Yeah, and with that, I'd like to come to some of our pilot use cases. The first of it is the aviation obstacles. So this is really just a selection. We have much use cases developing right now. This is one of our most mature, I'd like to say. Yeah, and as I just said, so this is one of our federal cooperation partners is the Deutsche Flugsicherung, which is the German air navigation service provider. And they are trying to elaborate their electronic terrain and obstacle database, which is basically an electronic catalog of objects that might be a flight obstacle. And for now, they have a point database as far as I know, and they have different kind of criteria for what might be an obstacle, and those two criteria are put here on the bottom right. So for each publicly accessible airport, which are approximately 400 in Germany, there are different areas based on different criteria. So beneath this 10-kilometer radius, around each airport. Every object below the height of 60 meters might be an obstacle and should be covered in the ETOT, in this database. And the second criterion is a 45-kilometer radius. Here, every object above a height of 60 meters above ground is a potential obstacle. And as you can see here on the second map, that's basically the overall area of Germany that is covered. So this is why our digital twin project with this nationwide aerial survey might be very useful for them to automate the process and to extend their electronic database of obstacles. Yeah. And now I'd like to show some comparisons of why this digital, this 3D model might be beneficial. So as you can see here, this is the as-built data set of the ETOT. And this is just point data. So you have different high cranes at the port at Hamburg as well. And now I'm going to show some examples. This is how our objects are going to look like that we derive in our workflows. So we have a lot of higher, a lot of gain in information. We don't have just the point data set, but also we have some shape and the extent of the object. So this is much more precise than what we got for now. For example, here we have some points of a power line, and using our data, we have covered all those not only the cranes, but also the electricity pylons and also those power lines covered. This is another bridge in Hamburg, which is also covered by 2 points for now. But using our data, you will also see all those additional features of the bridge and also substructure of the cables and so on. Yeah, and the product, which is under development now, will also provide a map. So in the end, we will intersect those different height ramps with our 3D model and are then able, as our point cloud comes pre-classified, we are also able to put the classification on our obstacles. So we are able, is this obstacle able to say if an obstacle might be vegetated or if it's a building or something else. And this is a map from Hamburg City Center that you can see here, which is from the proof of concept with our with the Deutsche Flugsicherung. What we are currently working on is a further differentiation of instances by instance segmentation of those high objects. And for that, we're training 3D models, AI models, to further differentiate those objects. And for now, we are able to further discriminate between tower cranes, gantry cranes, different kind of masts, loading cranes, tower cranes, electricity pylons, overhead lines, and wind power plants. And here you see some examples on the right in 3D mode. This is how those objects look like in the point cloud. And this can be further mapped then on a 2D map with the point with the type of instance. Yeah, this is currently under development. And now we're going to come to the second use case, which is the individual tree crown delineation, or shortly ITC delineation. Here we work closely together with the Thünen Institute, which is another federal research institute who has lots of expertise in those environmental tasks. And I just wanted to put this little slide for a motivation. This is also the use case that I'm involved in. So here you can see many different tree stands. On the top left, you see some city trees in Leipzig, which play an important role in regulating urban climate. As you might know, heat islands are becoming more and more an issue in cities. On the top right, you see the clearing of a pine forest for the construction of a new industrial site here in Brandenburg, in one of our federal states. This is made to serve as a depiction of land conflicts. And on the bottom left, you see a prototype of a single tree, an oak, on the land side. And on the bottom right, a mixed forest stand providing a high level of biodiversity. So I just put this to see how much traction there is on different kind of tree stands, but also to show how difficult it is under these different circumstances to perform a nationwide single tree detection. So this is a very ambitious task, and yeah, we're still in progress here. Yeah, and regarding the individual tree crown delineation, we are aiming for two goals. The first one is the single tree segmentation. So on the left, you see those RGB colored point cloud again from the metropolitan region, from the pilot study. And yeah, the first task is the segmentation. For this, we are evaluating different models, machine learning models, but also AI methods. And the second task is the trait retrieval. So as soon as we have a successful tree segmentation performed, we are able to retrieve further tree traits for every single tree. For example, here on the right, you might guess we can at least extract the tree height, but also the crown area. And then we have, from this point cloud, we can further derive, for example, return number, ratios, and so on. These are the two main aims. And on the next slide, I'm gonna present the basic workflow. So here again, you see a little extent the Hamburg from the state. You see RGB representation of the semantic segmentation. Here you can see. So the first one is the segmentation, and then there's segmentation. Contracts filtered by missions, so all data points. Task is basically the individual tree crowns, representing one point cloud cluster per tree. And based on this cluster point cloud, we are then able to derive further tree matrices. Of course, we are also trying to investigate the accuracy of our retrieval, and we do this by using a labeled point cloud by other different publications. So there's a point cloud by the University of Heidelberg, also in Germany, and they put in lots of effort to label a point cloud and to assign a unique ID to every single tree. What you see on the left is tree types, different tree types, but in fact, every kind of tree has a single ID. And using this labeled point cloud, we are able to evaluate the performance of our individual tree crown delineation methods, and we do this in 2D space by calculating coverage and intersection over union with our predicted tree clusters and the reference tree clusters that we derive from the point cloud by computing the convex hull of every single tree. And so we are able to compute different validation scores like F1 score, but also sensitivity and precision, and are really able to evaluate the performance of our tree retrieval method. What you can see here is some large or more large-scale result of our tree delineation in Hamburg. This is the city center, and we were able to also compare our results to the tree cadastre, as there's a city tree cadastre of Hamburg. We were able to directly compare this, and what you can see in blue are all those trees that could be matched by our tree segmentation method. What you see in red are the trees that could not be delineated from the point cloud with our methods. And this is especially the small trees, very small trees, smaller than 2 square meters in area. And so there are two reasons why it's hard to detect those trees. First, because they are very small, so they are more difficult to detect by our methods. And second, the position of the tree cadastral information is not that precise. So we guess that our 3D point cloud is more precise than the GPS point signal of the tree cadastral information, and that's why it's hard to intersect those results with our delineated information. So this is not a very strong mismatch, but we're still quite happy, already quite happy how well this works out. So here we are able to detect roughly about 70% of the trees that are also present in the tree cadastre. And here you can already imagine how valuable such a data set might be. For example, when we are thinking of tree vitality or or canopy coverage in a city, but also for lots of forestry applications. Yeah, how is the tree height, for example, distributed, and so on. And regarding those 3G metrics, you could also imagine to further attach further information, for example, to attach satellite imagery, or to really use some sensor fusion to gather almost live vitality index of individual trees. So this is something that gets more and more feasible. Yeah, and then I've put a third use case, which is rather an exotic one, but I think this is also quite interesting as it highlights how specific a use case might be. And this third use case is diving platform identification, and this comes from a demand of the digital sports from the Federal Institute of Sport Science in Germany. So there are federal authorities for almost everything in Germany, and they wanted to use our data to evaluate the feasibility of derived diving platforms to extend their digital sports facility atlas of Germany. And so there was a proof of concept to try if this is feasible from our data. So this is the workflow that my colleague developed. So here we have an example of a diving platform, which is also located in Hamburg metropolitan region. So this is just how it looks in real life. And then we got the area of interest. We got that from our contractors. So the area of interest was already known, but what they didn't know was where those diving platforms were, and the different heights of the platforms were also not known. So this was tried then to extract from our point cloud. So, and as we knew the area of interest around the platform, we were then able to crop the point cloud according to specific criteria of the platform, as they have some very specific shape and also are almost horizontal, those planes. We were able to isolate the diving platforms from the point cloud. This is the filtering that is based on the different attributes, for example, verticality, but also planar features of the points in space. What is then done is a DB clustering to get really those platforms and not those handholds. And this was done by a DB scan. So I basically a density-based clustering to extract those information. And then we were able to extract the actual heights above ground by using those DB scan results. Yeah, from this clustered point cloud, we are then able to generate a 2D vector as a point layer, basically, and to further append features like different platform heights and the location and the name from the location of the area of interest. And in the end, we have a map again, which would be an object data set that we could publish. Yeah, and even if this is a rather exotic use case, as I just said, I think it shows quite well how special those tasks can be, but also shows how versatile the use of the point cloud and use cases might be. Yeah, and with this, I'd like to wish you a great swimming season and thank you for listening. And I'm looking forward to some discussion. Are there any questions?
For this very clear presentation, I think we have starting questions.
Hello. I am François Loos from France. I am CEO of NAM3D. And so my question is about the raw material, I mean the data from LiDAR airplane. So I understand that you use several sensors, around 3 or 4 maybe sensors. So you say it is not data are not homogeneous. So my question is about what is the impact of using these different sensors about about accuracy, density, and about the data of RGB. can you tell us more about data from these different sensors?
Yeah, I might tell you. Thanks for the question. So for now, from the pilot study, we just got SPL data, so single photon lidar. And what is known about the single photon lidar data set is that it's quite sensitive. So we tend to have a little more noise using the SPL data sensor than from linear mode lidar sensor. And in general, the lidar sensors tend to be a little more better regarding penetration, especially in dedicated stance. So yeah, in general, linear mode lidar sensors tend to have a higher intensity. So we are not sure for now, as we didn't get the data of the actual campaigns yet, but we are really looking forward to look deeper into those results. But this is what we expect. So difference in sensitivity and penetration. And what else do we expect? Yeah, we're actually not that sure, as some of our contractors, they are flying under really different circumstances. But I think regarding the RGB acquisition, this will be done by a standard camera in 2D. So this is basically a 2D raster, and this will be almost the same procedure for both sensor types, so linear and single photon lidar. So I think that might not be a large difference. Yeah, I think the strongest difference to expect is penetration and intensity. But this is going to be evaluated as soon as the data is there. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Yes.
Good morning, Peter van Oostrom from the Netherlands. Peter, thanks for your presentation. I had kind of two questions about the data set. Why this, for a nationwide data set, high resolution of 40 points? And do you also consider, say, flood modeling as an application? Because you fly in the summer and you have all the leaves, are you not afraid that you don't see the surface?
Yeah, regarding the first point, yeah, the 30 points, that's quite high resolution. Yeah, to be honest, there's lots of demands, and there's, as we notice now, demands are evolving. So not every use case is going to make use of those 40 points of resolution. But as you have seen, for example, the diving platforms or different tasks, we expect there are going to be use cases which will require higher resolutions as soon as use cases will be evolving. That's the first case. And the second case is, yeah, we are probably using our data also for flood simulations. But as I'm not sure if you might know, in Germany, the federal states themselves are also conducting aerial campaigns, and they are really focusing on very precise terrain models. And so we already have those federal missions, federal state missions, and they're gonna have a much more precise terrain model. So this will be, in fact, different data sets for different purposes.
Yeah, hi. I have a question. Maybe I missed it in the second part, but you said at the beginning that you are not using BKG data in the data set. I would like to know why.
Okay, sorry. Maybe thanks for the question. Maybe I wasn't clear enough. Yes, we're gonna use data. So our customers and our users will be able to use BKG data as well, but it will not be published through the platform. So our platform is really the focus really put on the development of use cases. So it will not be published via the platform, but there will be interfaces to use all the BKG data on one place on the platform. But it will not be hosted there, but as it's already stored on our service providing platform. So there will be links and interfaces to that. But definitely we will be able to use it all in one place.
Hello, Peter. Benoit Frederic from
Hello.
IGN. Thanks for the presentation. I'm not sure I heard you well. Did you say that the targeted frequency for the updates of the acquisition was every 3 years or 3 times per year? I was not crystal clear on that.
Yeah, that's every 3 years. So that's not granted yet, but that's what we are aiming for.
I have a question for you, Peter. This is something that we discussed yesterday. This is the link between the national or the federal digital twin and the digital twin that can be developed more locally. In Germany, you have the landers who develop probably their own digital twins, and municipalities. How do you see the connection between, you have described in the use cases very local data that you derive from your national digital twin. Do you have some kind of governance in place for the connection between the federal and the more local twins?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for the question. That's indeed a quite interesting question. As we have some duplicate work already going on, but I think in the end this might be beneficial. As for example, as even the lenders, so the federal states might develop some use cases. They might extend their use cases nationwide. So I think in the end we might benefit one from each other. And there's some kind of commission. I don't know how to translate it. It's called the ADV, which is basically some kind of consortium where we, the federal administration, and also those federal states meet regularly and discuss such kind of topics. And I think we're in a learning phase. We are still discussing lots of things, but I think what we're trying to achieve is to profit one from each other. Yeah, and nevertheless, even the federal states might benefit from our products in the end, and the other way around. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other question? No? Okay, so thank you again, Peter, for this very clear presentation. Okay.
Thank you.